Welcome MD4, welcome MD7.
All right, my recording is on, my transcription is on. That's good. Coming down the home stretch. So, well, I know I had asked if anybody had questions to send them in to me ahead of time, and that was good. We have several for David. And I also know probably as David is speaking and bringing things up that you'll go, "Oh yeah, what about this?" And feel free to dump it in the chat and we'll get it to David and see if we can take care of hopefully the majority of any questions tonight. So that's what we're looking for. Because the more informed we are, the better we'll do in our clubs. That I believe, or districts. So Ohio, Pasadena. Yay.
I'm always excited on these chats to see what kinds of surprise questions we get. Those are always fun.
Yeah, it's and I personally am thankful for your experience because I believe you'll be able to field most of them without having to say, let me look that up.
I sure hope so.
Uh, well, there's a good tip. LionsUSA.org is where you find lots of great info about Lions USA and its affiliates. Thanks, Brian. And where you the recording of this meeting will be posted within a couple days on our YouTube channel at YouTube at Lions Rock. So, and not only is this recording there, but recordings from Membership Mondays, Wisdom Wednesdays, all the recordings of Lions International are posted on that YouTube channel. So you should bookmark that. And if you're at a meeting or gone and not able to catch one of these, you can always go back and look at it. We just finished a phenomenal growth seminar series that Brian and Jody Burmeister led, and that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for that, Brian. That was loved. And it is 7 p.m. I am excited and I am going to say thank you, thank you, thank you to each and every one of you who's taken the time to join with us tonight on our second edition of LCI Live. And I am so excited of our host, our featured guest tonight. It is Lion David Kingsbury, who is our Lions Club International General Counsel and Secretary. That's his official title. But if we just said he is LCI legal, that is what we're going to get. And so um, I'm delighted that David's willing to be with us tonight. And please listen up. If you have any questions, this is the time to get them out. We'll put all questions into chat and we'll funnel them to David. So Lion David, thank you for being here and take it away.
Thank you so much, Past Director Beck. Very happy to be here. You gave me the opportunity to speak with the Lions of the U.S., and I jumped at it. Always great to see you all and have an opportunity to address you and, provide an update on the legal division, what we're up to, and maybe answer some of your questions about what's going on at headquarters or what we can help you with from our perspective. So, I've shared my screen now. I've got a very high level presentation just to give you a taste of what the legal division deals with on a day-to-day basis and introduce you to our team. Hopefully, some of the items I touch on will stoke some questions for you. I would encourage you all to feel free to participate, jump in, add your questions into the chat, and we'll address them as we go along. Hopefully, this will be a nice interactive session. We'll learn a little bit about each other and find a better way for us to serve you all as members, because without you all, we wouldn't be employed and get to do what we do and help you do what you do, which is serving your communities. So, without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump to an introduction of the team. So the first team member you're going to meet is Amalia Bowders. This is her with her husband, Mark. She is our corporate counsel. She's been with LCI for about 5 years. She's been a very close colleague and friend of mine within the legal division for her time here. She oversees the association and foundation contracts. So we review anywhere between 250 to 300 contracts annually, dealing with the various aspects of the association. So whether that's leadership training, convention, or vendor agreements with LCI, she reviews all of those to make sure that the association is protected. She also supports HR inquiries, employment issues, and guides us on many litigation matters that involve the association. Thankfully, there's not too many of those because as a nonprofit, we tend to be not highly sought after in courts. Emily Seaholm is our staff attorney. She's been with us for coming up on 3 years now. She is the one that most clubs and districts would interact with when they email the legal division and need an attorney response. She's kind of our first line of defense from the attorney side. She'll provide guidance and oversee the dispute resolution process and give guidance on the Constitution and bylaws and governance questions regarding clubs, districts, and multiple districts. She's been a great addition to the team. She's probably our newest member, along with Brian Pashka, who you'll meet in a minute. And yeah, we're happy to have her. So I hope if you all have an opportunity to email legal, you get her, you'll be very well taken care of. Trisha Ramayez is one of our paralegals. If your club or district has a foundation that requires approval from the legal division, Trisha tends to spearhead that effort in reviewing policy to make sure that it's compliant with the governing documents provided by the proposed foundation. Now, just for a bit of clarity, in case you all don't know, we provide a license to clubs that want to start a separate 501c3 foundation that they manage, and they're responsible for the annual filings, the 990 filings with both the foundation and their clubs, which is an extremely important piece of what clubs are responsible for in ensuring that they're maintaining that nonprofit license. Trisha is pictured here on the right, obviously, with her boyfriend Brian. He's a Chicago police officer. Again, very lucky to have her. My apologies, jumped the gun on that one. She also helps candidates seeking election for third vice president or an international director. She reviews the certification forms and helps the legal division process and certify those candidates, making sure they meet the qualifications provided for in the international constitution and bylaws. Brian Pashka is our other newer member. He's a paralegal. If you've interacted with the board or seen him at convention, he is always very active. He provides a great deal of support with not only club and district inquiries and calls into the legal division, but helps manage the convention committees, which are overseen by the legal division. He supports the secretary function as well, which is the maintenance of the corporate records. So board meeting minutes, board policy manual updates. He helps ensure that the committee reports are clear and concise and meet the obligations or the requirements laid out in policy. He's been with us for about 3 years. He's fantastic, and he and the entire team are really growing at a great rate. So hopefully you all feel the benefit of that in your interactions with the legal division. Next is Heather O'Donnell. She is our longest tenured member in the association. She's been with us since 2014. She joined the legal division in 2021, serving as the executive assistant. She gives me a great deal of support and supports the entire legal division, making sure that we're properly communicating to clubs on necessary matters. She provides support to the board of directors as well, serving on the executive team and making sure that the board meeting minutes are posted quickly, efficiently, and accurately so that our public record is reflective of the decisions made by our board. Sorry, and that's me and my family. I have been general counsel since 2020. I was given the good fortune of serving as the corporate secretary effective July of 2021. My role is mainly to provide legal guidance and strategic support to the International Board of Directors, the executive officers, and really to protect the association and the foundation as my two sole clients. I don't represent the legal division, does not represent any individual of the board. It doesn't represent the executive administrator. We represent the association and the foundation to provide guidance to keep those entities compliant with local laws and out of legal jeopardy. We oversee apologies, I keep jumping the gun there. We oversee the election process at the International Convention, and that entire process contains several committees, including the Credentials Committee, Nominating Committee, Rules of Procedure Committee, the Elections Committee, the Advisory Committee to review third vice president candidates. So there's about seven total committees that the legal division oversees during the International Convention, in addition to our support of the board and its committees. I have been with LCI since 2014, and I have to give a quick shout out to my Michigan friends since I was born and raised in Michigan. Moved to Illinois in 2009 to take the bar exam, but I am a Michigan State Spartan. Very proud of it. So is my wife. So if you're not a fan, please keep that out of the chat.
Go
Um,
green.
go white.
Hey,
Um,
Lion David.
yes, sir.
Here, I do have a question that if you could just get to Tricia or not. It said the Lions District 49A, they have several foundations that need to get updated on the updates to LCI. And there may be other foundations also in need. Could They would love to have materials to share with their clubs about this. Is that something that they could take care
Absolutely. I would suggest emailing the legal division, and we'll have that email address ready at the end of the presentation if you don't have it. Um, with that request, we'll provide you all the necessary documentation, and we've worked closely with multiple districts that want to do this on a large scale. So we can provide you a list of all the foundations we have in your district or multiple district, compare that with what you're aware of, and try to consolidate the two so we can make sure that the ones that are operating that we may not have previously approved are able to get that approval and really just function in a way that's compliant with our policies and procedures.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And just so everyone knows, at the end of this presentation, we will have the contact information for our legal division, whether you take a screenshot or just take a picture with your camera, but you will have the email and phone numbers that you can follow up with. Thank you, David.
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll move on to the purposes of the strategic purpose of the legal division. It's really, as I mentioned, to protect and advance the legal integrity of Lions International, which is inclusive of LCI and LCIF globally. So we ensure compliance with our governing documents, the board policy manual, and applicable law not only in the United States, but laws that impact our members globally. For example, data privacy laws. Because we have data from members in Europe, we have to comply with European data privacy laws. So that does impact our entire association and how we manage membership data. Um, Legal division provides guidance on all of these issues and often work with outside counsel to help us manage the larger issues in countries where we aren't licensed to practice law or aren't familiar with their legal systems. Um, as noted, we safeguard the association's governance framework and corporate records. This includes working with our finance division and the finance committee on making sure we have bank accounts in the right countries so that we can utilize funds from our members in a manner that's consistent with our use of funds policy and that allows us to use it in a way that's beneficial to the association. So much farther than the United States, we have to be familiar with laws on a global scale. It keeps things interesting for everyone in the legal division, that's for sure. We provide governance and board support. So if there's a question on policy or the interpretation of matters in the constitutions and bylaws, whether that's the international, the multiple district or club constitution and bylaws. The authoritative interpretation comes through the legal division. And it's not my personal opinion. In most cases, we will work with the Constitution and Bylaws Committee to formulate formal opinions on how to interpret certain pieces of policy. And for those that aren't aware, there's a board policy manual, a legal chapter within there that contains constitutional interpretations. So some of the more general questions on anything from past officer associations or elections and validity of um, certifications, deeper interpretation will be provided in that section that a lot of members aren't aware of. So if something does come up, it's really important that you email the legal division if you aren't sure of the answer, and we'll provide it to you in a manner that you can communicate back to your members that will hopefully give you the tools to resolve the issue locally. We provide advisory oversight on parliamentary procedures, both during board meetings and committee meetings, as well as board actions. So when there's a question on how and when to get something passed by the board or to propose it for vote at a convention, we provide guidance on that procedure. And then we prepare legal reviews of all official board minutes and resolutions. These are public record. So if a member needs a copy or would like to know what decision was made, we can provide that once those final minutes have been approved by the board for distribution. I'm sure, I hope many of you are aware of our several liability or several insurance policies. So we have our enterprise and risk management program. The general liability insurance policy provides coverage for all members, clubs, districts, multiple districts, foundations, Lions approved foundations that are conducting Lions activities. And it gives clubs and members the confidence to be able to conduct activities without fear of being held liable for something that may or may not have been within their control, but they took reasonable steps to try to correct. So the general liability insurance policy provides that coverage. It will provide a defense if an incident arises, and that's paid for by membership dues. So there's no additional fees. There's nothing clubs have to do to be eligible for that. It just applies automatically to all clubs, districts, multiple districts, Leo clubs, any Lions approved entity, and it covers a broad range of people. So effectively anyone attending a Lions event will be covered if a claim were to arise under that policy. In addition to the policy that's available to our members, we also manage the risk management program for cyber insurance, property insurance for the properties owned by LCI, directors and officers insurance, and any other insurance program that's necessary for the functioning of LCI and LCIF. We also support global registration of LCI and LCIF in the countries where it's required. In many countries where we have high donor participation, we will establish a bank account or sometimes a legal entity to further incentivize local donors, much like in the United States, where they can get a tax deduction for that benefit or for that donation. We want to provide that same benefit for donors in high donation areas. So we do have other bank accounts and global registration needs that we work with our finance division on and help maintain those programs. We also maintain the association's trademark portfolio.
David,
Yes.
before you get too far, with regards to the enterprise risk, the one question said, do we have to register our event in advance?
No. The coverage will apply whether or not there's any kind of notification. What we do offer is the ability for clubs, districts, multiple districts to obtain a certificate of insurance for events, which is really just evidence of the coverage that's already there. So the vendor that you're working with or the hotel that's hosting the event may want to see that so that they know they're not responsible for certain aspects of that event. That certificate of insurance can be printed online or obtained directly from DSP, which is our insurance provider. They'll give that to the clubs to evidence the coverage that already exists, but there's no need to register specific events as long as they're Lions events. They're going to be
Awesome.
covered.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, so we have a very large trademark program. We have more than 200 marks and about registered covering more than 185 countries. We work with outside counsel to manage this use. So even use of the logo that you see in our backgrounds with the lion's emblem, that's protected by LCI and that's governed by the trademark policy, which is also managed by the legal division. So when it comes to registering the marks or keeping them protected globally, part of that is making sure that Lions clubs and foundations are using the mark appropriately. So it's important that clubs and districts are clearly identifying themselves when they're using the Lions logo. And it's really to make sure that they're being recognized for the work that they're doing and that what they're doing isn't being confused with something that LCI is doing. So we want to make sure credit is going where credit is due and that clubs using the logo for projects or promotions or fundraising are receiving the recognition for the good that they're doing in their own communities. So LCI, the legal division within LCI and LCIF is really a shared services program. We provide oversight of all contracts for both organizations, LCI and LCIF. We provide oversight for the international district election procedures. So when the district conventions are concluded, if an election complaint arises, that comes through the legal division and is reviewed by the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. We also help guide clubs, districts, and multiple districts through the steps of the dispute resolution procedures, which can get complicated, but really try to steer them back to policy and ensure that they're sticking to the letter of the law so that it's a little more clear and they don't run off the wrong path. Um, Finally, I guess the maintenance of the official governance records, the corporate documentation, the board policy manual updates, all of these things, the updates of the resources online that you'll see on the legal division page. These are all maintained by the legal division through the staff that you met earlier on. Um, and all of this occurs in between the daily emails, the daily calls, the meetings like this where we get to sit with the Lions and talk about what we do. But I think this gives you a little taste of the breadth of the things that are managed by the legal division at LCI. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a bit. This is just the general contact information. If anyone doesn't have it, it's the main line for the legal division telephone, the legal inbox, as well as the legal resource page. This will give you access to all of the main documents that we manage, the dispute resolution procedures, use of funds policy, the trademark policy, gives you access to the insurance page where you can print your certificate of insurance or download the program booklet, which will detail a little bit more about the insurance coverage afforded to clubs.
Awesome. David, we have had several questions come in, and I will share the first one with you. If you could provide insight into the legal impact to set up a 501c3 entity. And the club is asking because two of their corporate sponsors have a 501c3 requirement that they want met.
Sure. So I think a common misconception for clubs is that when they want to create a 501c3 entity, they are changing the status of their club from a 501c4 to a 501c3. And I would say, please don't do that. That creates a lot of complications that can be avoided. Really, what we're doing when a Lions Club as a 501c4 entity, which is really just a service organization, it's a nonprofit, meaning that revenue or membership dues or donations that come in under the purposes of that club are not taxable income to the club. So that's a separate issue from a 501c3 entity, which is also nonprofit, meaning the revenue obtained through this entity is not tax deductible to the IRS. But it also offers an additional benefit, which is why a lot of corporate donors want this, is that it offers a tax deduction to the donor. So the money that they donate, they can take off of their taxable income to reduce the impact of the taxes on what their overall income is. So what you're doing when you create a C3 entity is you have now two separate entities. The club still functions as a C4. It handles the administrative funds, so the membership dues should flow generally through the club. If there's additional excess administrative dues, that stays within the club to make sure that the club can purchase any insurance or support events that it needs to host membership meetings. The 501c3 would be the source or the recipient of effectively most of your public donations, the public funds. So those donations would come in direct from donors. They would receive a tax benefit. They would be encouraged to give more because their benefit is going to be greater by giving to this 501c3 entity. Now, the impact is that you now have two separate legal entities, both that require filings, annual filings with the IRS and potentially with your state. Some states don't require a 501c4 to be registered. Some may not require a 501c3 to be registered. So you'll need to look at your state requirements. But the annual requirement or the annual filing requirement applies to both entities. So you now have two entities to manage, but it shouldn't be overwhelming if the board of directors of the club and the board of directors of the foundation are the same or very similar. You'll have a lot of overlap. So it's just repeating the process for both entities, but it's the same group of people doing it. So I hope that's helpful.
Super helpful. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Brian, you want to give him the next question from our chat box?
How about this one comes from Marie. Do we have staff in other larger constitutional areas such as Asia, India, or is that outside counsel?
We do have some other offices. So we have about 30 staff members in the Assami region. It's an India office. We have an office in Japan and an office in Korea. I think between the three offices, there's about 35 staff members. The vast majority of staff are in LCI headquarters. There's about 320 staff members there.
Hey, David, here's a good one. This is the trouble one I know for some clubs. You know, we all modify our constitution and bylaws to make some things very specific for our district or our club. The constitution and bylaws of our club were not updated for the last 20 years or so. Last year, I compared our constitution and bylaws with the latest from LCI and made a recommendation to the club to update keeping some of the old spirit, but primarily updating the spirit of the new. This was a major undertaking. How can we make it easier for other clubs to keep their constitution and bylaws updated?
That's a good question. I think a lot of that really can come from the membership because the clubs are fairly autonomous. The changes that we might make to the international constitution and bylaws aren't often going to have an impact to the club or require a need for them to change. But I think it's good practice for clubs to have a Constitution and Bylaws committee or have some members that are familiar with that process to, look at it regularly, maybe once or twice a year and say, okay, do we still need this provision? Are we still practicing what this says? Or should we make some changes to bring it in line with how we're currently operating? So I think a lot of it is being proactive from the club standpoint. And if it's a big undertaking, if it's something that hasn't been done in 20 or 30 years, I would recommend probably starting from the standard club constitution and bylaws or standard district, if that's what you're updating. Do a comparison in Word between what you have and what that has, and try to align the two and merge them in a way that makes sense to you or to your district.
And David, if it's not covered in our club's constitution and bylaws, then does it go back to Lions International constitution and bylaws if there's more detail about it?
It may. Generally speaking, the standard club constitution and bylaws governs clubs unless otherwise amended. So if a club has made an amendment but maybe forgot to include something from the standard form, if that were to come up in dispute, we would likely have to look to the standard form constitution and bylaws because the club constitution and bylaws is silent on that matter.
Awesome. The next one up, David. Our club is purchasing a 20 by 40 trailer. It will not be registered. It will be a structure at our local high school. We intend to put a large Lions logo on it. Are we opening up to any liability issues since there is not a registration and our logo will be on
Well, I hate to do this, but it's the typical lawyer answer, and I'm going to have to say maybe.
it?
I think anytime you put the logo on something, certainly we want it out there if the club has done this to benefit the school. I don't think the club should be afraid of it, afraid of potential liability. I think they need to be recognized for that work. So, first things first, if you're going to use the logo, make sure the club's clearly identified. Have the logo untouched with the club name around it or next to it so that everybody knows the club has done this and given this to the school. Now, when it comes to the potential insurance issues, the general liability insurance policy is not a property insurance policy. So you may need, or the school may need to purchase separate insurance to ensure there's coverage. And then if something were to occur and the club was named in a lawsuit, that insurance would likely respond.
Thank you. You touch base on the logo, and the next question deals with our logo. It's it comes and it says, I have seen many clubs or lines throughout the world destroy the LCI logo and place their face or something else in the middle of it. Are we taking any kind of action against these people or protecting our brand?
Always. We are always protecting our brand. I will say in most cases, the alteration to the logo is not necessarily done in bad faith. They're not looking to gain anything. They just think, oh, it's cool. I want to put my face in there. I've got pins, I've got photos of all kinds of district governors over the last several decades that have done something similar, um, not with any ill intent. So when we get notified about something like that, whether it's something as simple as a picture or just an overlap, we always handle that with care. We follow up and say, hey, this is the issue. This is why it's wrong with our, or why it's incorrect in what our policy says. This is how you can correct it. And then we expect that correction to occur. If it doesn't occur, then we would escalate to a cease and desist or potentially engaging in litigation if they were using that to benefit, say a non-approved entity or a non-Lions entity was using the logo and collecting funds. We could go after them through our trademarks to pull those funds back and make sure that they're not benefiting directly from the use of our logo. So yes, we do escalate if we need to, but generally with Lions, we just try to correct them. And if they don't, then we can escalate internally as needed.
Awesome. Thank you. You got the next one, Brian?
Yeah, hey, David, in regards to privacy and all those things are changing and personal information and everything. This one comes from Kelly. And hope I gotta get back to it again. She was asking in regards to all the information and stuff that we are getting in order to be able to cover new laws associated with gathering people's emails, personal information. We got to get for our club as part of contacting people, getting people's informations for forms. The laws change in 2026, and what do you have to put onto forms and etc. has changed? What's some of the guidance we have for some of the personal information? And I want to add to that too. We do a lot of vision screenings and that stuff too, and we take a lot of pictures we put on Facebook too. Any comments in regards to that to keep us safe?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because that's something that's, changing rapidly and always in flux. I think good practice is whether it's pictures or obtaining information that you're going to utilize later, obtaining consent, making sure that it's clear what you're collecting, why you're collecting it, and how it will be used is best practice. If you're doing usually with vision screening, for example, you're doing that in conjunction with the school. The school will have policies that will manage that privacy. Um, I would ask them or make sure you get confirmation that you have permission to use photos at those events. If it's a Lions event conducted in public, again, good practice to try to get consent. That's not always practical, but if you don't have clear use or you're not really sure, I'd kind of refrain from posting just to be safe. But I think a good rule of thumb is to make sure that you have a checkbox for consent. I agree to share my information with the club for purposes of membership. or whatever the case may be. Being clear on how you're collecting it and getting that consent will be that'll go a long way in protecting the club and reducing any liability.
Cool. David, let me give you another one here. This is from Robert. And for the club constitution and bylaws, can there be kind of a mandatory, like a yellow shaded entry, like on a district constitution and bylaws where it doesn't have to be amended all the time? Or maybe tell us the difference between constitution and bylaws and policy, where things should go.
The Constitution, so when we talk about the Constitution and bylaws, we tend to talk about it as a single document, but it's really two separate documents. The Constitution is more high level, establishing what the positions are, what the board is, what the officers are, and then the bylaws give details on how those positions come to be, maybe where those duties are. You don't want to have information in the Constitution and bylaws that you need to be flexible. For example, if you have a procedure on how to change over signatories in a bank account. You don't want to have that in the Constitution and bylaws because then you don't have the flexibility to make changes if your local laws change. You have to rely on voting on changes to that document. So you want to try to differentiate between what's necessary to be there, what needs to be flexible to keep out of the Constitution and bylaws, and what really should stay in, which is really about the governance of the club. So the procedural aspects, how you accomplish what the club's supposed to do can be outside, but how you elect the officers, how you conduct meetings, that can be within the Constitution and bylaws. Really, with clubs, there's a great deal of flexibility, which is why you don't see the mandatory provisions there. Clubs have a few duties under the policies of LCI, which is really to conduct annual elections, resolve disputes in accordance with our internal procedures, hold regular meetings, and report your membership, pay your dues. Right. So beyond that, club has flexibility on how they conduct meetings, how they elect officers, but they do need to have annual elections. So as long as you're doing those things, LCI is going to give you the flexibility you need so that your club can function in a way that's going to most benefit you and your local communities.
Awesome. David, ahead of time, I had sent you several questions that had came in, and one of the viewers is waiting for those to be addressed.
Yes, the first question that I recall was regarding insurance coverage for a local kind of conglomerate of clubs that I don't recall the exact name. It was like a Northeast group of clubs that were kind of meeting together and working like regionally.
Yes.
So with respect to those groups, whether it's a past district governor group or a past officer group, as long as they're functioning in a Lions capacity, the general liability insurance coverage is likely going to respond. I think the example that was given was somebody was injured in a hotel at a meeting. The hotel is likely going to be responsible, or the insurance there would respond. But if there's ever a question, whether it's a Lions Club meeting or an external Lions group, um, type of event, I would encourage you to go ahead and file a claim under the insurance policy or insurance program. If there's coverage, then it'll be responsive. It will be responsive, and if there's not coverage, then you'll know. But it never hurts to file that, especially if the injury is relatively minor. There's while it's not an accident policy, there is a medical stipend of about $5,000 that may be responsive on some of those claims just to kind of appease the issue and keep it out of the court system.
Thank you. And my question regarding the second one dealt with the reasonable accommodation. I could read it if you don't have it available, but do you recall that one?
Yes, that was a request about effectively why there isn't more Braille material for the documents provided by LCI. And
Yes.
um, to be honest, I think that's a fair criticism. I often have wondered that myself. But there's a lot of factors to that. There's first the cost of Braille, the fact that many of our vision impaired individuals aren't able to utilize it. It may not be an effective tool, but it's certainly something we can always look into. So if there's specific documents, I would encourage you to email the legal division and we can get that to the right team. But I also reached out to our marketing and club supplies teams for their feedback because I wasn't really sure on this one. It's not a question I get too often. And I'll just read what they had shared. And they said that we have made meaningful investments in accessibility across both our public website and the Lion portal to better support individuals with visual impairments. For example, tools like UserWay, which provide voiceover functionality and screen reader compatibility. Today, the majority of our digital content is formatted to work effectively with these systems. So we are investing in greater accessibility for our documents, but if there's a specific need, I would certainly encourage you to email the legal division or our marketing division, and we can dig into that further.
Thank you so much, David. Brian, you got the next?
Yeah, I've got one in regards to a logo, and I'm going to expand on this a little bit. This comes from Austin. Our logo is a very protected thing and something that's been around for a long time. I've seen many clubs throughout the world destroy our LCI logo and place their face on it or something else in the middle. Are we taking action on these people? Some of them are complimentary and some of them maybe not so complimentary. That's the first part of the question.
Yeah. Yeah, in those cases, as we had mentioned earlier, we will take action if it's necessary. Usually it's, hey, club, you need to knock that off. That's inappropriate use. Very often they aren't aware of it. Once in a while they push back and say, well, we've been doing this for years, and we'll have to get a little more stern. But with respect to clubs if and districts, if there was continued non-compliance with the association policy, we would go ahead and place them in status quo for conduct on becoming a Lions Club because they're not complying with one of those obligations that I had mentioned earlier.
And I'm sorry if you asked that earlier, Bruce. I was busy reading some of these. There's some really good questions out here, David. In regards to the logo, and I know we have certified vendors. And if my club, wants to make hats and shirts and stuff for my club, do we have to go through a certified vendor? And the next thing would be is, if we make coffee mugs or if we want to sell shirts within either our area or maybe on Facebook, then do we have to go through a certified vendor? A little more clarity on that, maybe, David.
Yeah, certified vendors, the licensed vendors are authorized to sell products. And if you're obtaining products to sell, generally, we would encourage you to go through our licensees. And that's because you're using that to sell and raise funds, but the product being sold to the public, uh, to we've got to protect that mark, and we do get a royalty from our licensees. I will also say that with respect to clubs, if you're doing kind of smaller projects or you're looking for like your club wants to get shirts for a year, there are automatic permissions for clubs to produce certain materials, generally up to the number of members in the club. However, if there's, some deviation from that and you want to seek special permission, you can always email the legal division. I am not against offering a one-time license for a non-licensee to produce a certain number of products for your club to conduct an event or to just wear around your neighborhood as a membership initiative. So there's flexibility there, but all of those permissions should come through the legal division. And hopefully, most reputable vendors wouldn't be producing things on the logo or utilizing our logo without our permission. So never worry about reaching out. We'll be flexible with you. We want to help you accomplish what you're setting out to do, but we want to make sure that it's being used in accordance with our policies.
Thank you, David.
Mhm.
Here's one from Reed. You mentioned that LCI has a cyber policy. With clubs doing a lot of transactions with the public via credit cards, some of those types of things that we use and other personal information, do you see any exposure where the club should be covered by a cyber policy? If so, is this being considered as an optional purchase through our current policy?
Um, the cyber insurance policy doesn't necessarily cover general transactions. We utilize it because we store a vast amount of data. If clubs are doing things like credit card purchases, they shouldn't be storing the credit card information. If they are, they definitely need a, a cyber insurance policy. But they should be working with a reputable third-party vendor like, I don't know, like Zelle or, some of the basic ones that have secure encryption on transfer and have some kind of, basic security things. And like I said, they're reputable. You know that they're going to be protecting that data as much as possible even if we don't, you can never guarantee the protection of data. The big banks, the big companies, they're all at risk all the time. So we need to be diligent with the clubs in only making sure that we're only collecting and storing information that we need. We're only using the minimum amount of data that we need. And if you do that, I think locally, it's going to be very low risk and may not be necessary to purchase something like cyber insurance. But if you have a bigger program, you're storing a lot of information and you're running your own servers, the larger you get, the greater the risk. You certainly might want to consider that, but that would be an administrative cost of the district and multiple districts.
Awesome. The next couple questions are fairly current and trendy, David, so I look forward to hearing your response. Number one is from Mark, and it says, I've heard from two different clubs that their Facebook accounts were suspended because of logo infringement. How can the legal team help these clubs? And is there anything you can do at the corporate level working with Facebook to prevent it in the future?
Yeah, I'm familiar with this problem. It's been a big one that's been around for the last year and a half or so. We do have a direct response team that is working with Facebook to try to get these resolved when they pop up. So if these clubs want to, or anyone wants to notify us that those pages have been impacted, we'll share that with our team and have them work with Facebook directly to get that taken care of.
Awesome. Thank you. And the second one I had is from Lion Ferdy, and this is just spot on. What are the potential legal issues surrounding the use of artificial intelligence within Lions clubs?
It's great timing. We just did an AI presentation for staff because our AI policies are changing internally. Look, AI is everywhere. I think as users, we are always the weak point when it comes to data security. So we need to be aware of the risks of using this type of technology. But AI can be a great tool and it can improve efficiencies and help develop programs and really make things better so that we can focus on what's more important. Um, Generally, I would say don't include personal data. If you're going to use data at all, try to use aggregated data. So, certain charts and information that's not going to expose any individuals. A lot of these systems are using you to train their models. So keep that in mind. You're working for free and they're giving you output, but that output may not always be trusted. There's hallucinations and things that can occur through these AI systems. So we don't want to become too reliant on it, but recognize that it can be a beneficial tool and take advantage of training opportunities that you see out there, whether it's Facebook videos that talk about prompting, how to write better prompts. I mean, the more we learn about this as users, the better off we're going to be. And it will help keep us and Lions and the clubs up with the times because this technology is not going to go away.
Awesome. Thank you for that one. Um, the next question reads from Thomas. I came across a Facebook page of an organization that have no affiliation with Lionism. What is legal's position regarding clubs or organizations that use the name Lions but are not affiliated with Lionism?
This is an interesting one. I just clicked that link. That one I'd have to look into, but there are some Lions organizations around the world. I believe there's one in London. It's a soccer club that we have allowed to use the Lions name or certain aspects of it. They're never using the logo. So just because they use the word Lions doesn't necessarily mean it's a violation of trademark. So we'd have to look into the details on that a little bit. But if it was not a Lions affiliated company, we'd likely work with outside counsel to send a cease and desist and ensure that that use stopped.
Awesome.
I think, David, I think I've turned a few into you too. Sometimes we see a lot of them on Facebook selling things that are not a certified vendor, like the presidential logo on a sweatshirt all of a sudden. And I think the main thing is knowing if they're certified vendors or not. And I believe you have a list of those on our website. Is that correct?
There is a list of authorized licensees on the website that you can access just by typing in licensees in the search box. Yeah, there's been a campaign on Temu and some of those less kind of secure, reputable sites where merchants can just post all kinds of things that aren't licensed. So we work with outside counsel as well to get those taken down.
Here's one in regards to a closure of a club. First of all, we hope nobody ever closes, but they reorganize and rejuvenate. But if a club closes, what's the procedure for the funds they have in their account, the charter, some of the paraphernalia have? You have any tips on that?
Yeah, with respect to the charter and paraphernalia, it's generally recommended it's returned to the district governor or to LCI, and we'll manage that. With respect to the funds, we'll talk about administrative funds and public funds. Public funds still need to comply with policy, which requires them to go to the benefit of the public. So that can be to another nonprofit, preferably another Lions Club or Lions Foundation, so that they can use that to benefit their causes. The administrative funds are, once they've paid any outstanding bills or dues or anything that they owe, that's generally divided among the remaining members of the club at the time of dissolution. We don't have any hard and fast rules on what must occur, but that's the guidance that we would generally advise clubs on.
Well, I think this is the last question that I can see then, and I'm not sure if you already addressed it because I know you talked about part of it while I was reading other questions. So it comes in from Lion Joe. What do you recommend clubs do with banners, shirts, etc. that have the old Lions logo with the red tongue? Are clubs expected to replace those logos with new ones or what?
That's a great question because I know a lot of Lions love that tricolor logo with that pink tongue. It's nice. I like it too. Um, I would recommend that at least with social media and some of the things that are easy to update to the current logo, and then as the banners and other things start to get replaced or get faded, then you would want to update that with the newer logo. We aren't gonna punish clubs that are, using the older logo on a banner or something. They've been around long enough to have earned that. But it will be difficult to get those things renewed going forward because they're not going to be available. We're really focused on getting the newer logo, more widespread. There's going to be a campaign actually on updating the road signs. So as you're driving into the towns, I think many of us have them or have seen them, uh, old logos. We want to refresh that and try and get the new one out there a little more prevalent.
Awesome.
David, I got a question for you. I first of all want to say thank you. I know you guys are busier than a snowplow in a Minnesota blizzard, and you guys and you're doing things. It's not a 9 to 5 job. You guys are working weekends and nights. And I don't know how you handle all the emails and stuff you have. I know you want our districts and our multiples to take care of their issues, and you got complaints outside of that. But how many cases do you have like you're juggling all the time? Do you have any idea? I don't know if you got any analytics on how many you go through. I can't
I
believe
couldn't even venture to guess. You know, it's a revolving door. Sometimes we give kind of the guidance on what they need to do and point them in the right direction, and districts run with it or clubs deal with it. Sometimes they take a little more hand-holding and need more support, and sometimes these issues can last years that we're dealing with in certain areas. So, um, it's just a lot of patience and utilizing local leaders and taking opportunities like this to talk with Lions and answer questions. And we're really trying to be more proactive in providing trainings as needed. So if a multiple district wanted to bring the district governors and relevant officers together to talk about how to manage a district convention, we would provide that kind of training for them. So keep that in mind with your members, especially as the attendees and group grows and Lions USA keeps developing more leaders. We're here to support this and provide any training we can or answer any questions whenever they arise.
Absolutely awesome. Well, we have no further questions, David. In fact, we're coming within a few minutes of the appropriate time. And so, Brian, do you have any closing thoughts or comments before I give David the opportunity?
No, I just want to thank David and his entire staff. You guys hit some really unique things all the time, and really appreciate it. Can't thank you guys enough.
Well, thank
And
you all.
and
It's been
I
great.
second, I second and concur Brian's exact words. I had the privilege of working with you on the CBL committee, and what you and your team do is phenomenal. When we think it's not just CA1 that they have to deal with in our rules. Like he mentioned before, dealing with all the different laws of these foreign countries and still getting our policy or bylaws to make sense in that country. And you guys do a phenomenal job to resolve the issues of an international organization. And I also want to say thank you to you and your team for making time to be here tonight and talk with the Lions on this program. So thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was really great to have a chance to talk with all of you and answer some of these questions. And please don't hesitate to reach out to the legal division or myself directly if you have any questions in the future.
Awesome. Could we put that? I look forward to seeing you all on next month's LCI Live. And I'm going to try and tell you real quick here. We are having our featured guest next month will be Noel Mason, and he's in charge of the membership and operations support division. And so that's for all of headquarters. And we look forward to having Noel next month. And if I invite you to come back and learn more about what our headquarters divisions do for our clubs and Lions to help us be successful. And with that, thank you, David. Thank you, Brian, for helping. And thank you all and have a great night.
Great job, Bruce.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thanks,
Paul.
David.
Thank you from California.